Hey, Candace here from A Touch of Homeschooling, and today I am excited to share with you this really cool resource that came across. It's a book, but I call it a resource because honestly, there is so much information in here. It's something that, like, I already know me and my daughter will be referring to over and over again. So, the book is called Teen's Guide to Making and Selling Upcycled Arts and Crafts. And get you guys a good view of it. There you go. So, before I tell you too much about the book, I want to tell you guys why I was excited about this book. So, teaching my children about running their own business, starting their own business, and entrepreneurship in general is something that I am very interested in, very focused on, very excited about. I would call myself kind of like an accidental entrepreneur. I never saw myself as somebody who was starting a business. I never thought it was something I would be interested in. I'm so very introverted. And that was something that I just kind of never considered. I was very much on the traditional go to school, go to college, get a job somewhere, like that is the path to success. And that's just kind of not how my life happened. And over the years, I've started like 5 different businesses, and it's always been something that I keep coming back to, and especially as a mom and trying to manage my life and the flexibility. And I will be perfectly honest, when I look around, and I've thought this for several years, when I look around and I see who are the people who are doing very well financially, who are very secure in that way, that are not stuck on a very high-paced corporate career, it's people who own their own businesses. And so it's something that I want to kind of expose my kids to as a young age, because honestly, I wish somebody had let me know that was even an option. Like, that might not be the path that my kids go down, and that's totally fine. But I want them to know that it's an option. I want them to know that it's something that they can do. I kind of want to give them, empower them. It's probably the best word I could use. I want to empower them to know that this is a path that you can take and do well at. And I feel like that starts when they're young. I want them to know about it. I want to encourage them to do it. I've even been talking to my daughter about this for the last 4 or 5 months or so. Not like, oh, hey, you have to do this, but like, this is something that you could try. Like, do you want to explore it? And I really especially think that those teen years is the perfect time for this. Most of us are encouraging our children to go get a job, to learn about earning their own money, and to be in the workforce and stuff of that nature. And when I'm here to help her and guide her and encourage her and give her feedback and kind of give her that space to explore this without any kind of serious repercussions, right? Like, if she's doing this when she's out of the house for the first time, the stakes are so much higher than if she kind of explores this as a teenager. So, a book that's all about teaching teens how to start their own business was right up their alley. My daughter is very crafty. She loves to draw. She loves arts. So, I was so thrilled to get this book. Super, super excited about it. Okay, so a little bit more detail about the book, just kind of a basic overview. It's by James Dillahay, and I hope 100% that I'm saying his name right, but he's the author. I read the book first, and I was definitely blown away by him, and then I went and kind of looked him up a little bit, and he's written 12 books. He has owned his own arts and crafts gallery, or it might have been a shop. He did this for several years. We're talking like 20 years. He was actually selling handmade crafts and upcycled crafts. And I love the fact that this was not just a recap of what other people have done, but he's actually been successful at this. And when you read the book, you can tell, because there are just so many tips and information and resources that really, to me, speak to that they're authentic, that they're from somebody who's actually done this and been successful at it. And that is very exciting for me and important for me. I already know how to Google. Like I said, I've started my own businesses. I understand a lot of the things that he was talking about in the book, but it really showed to me, like, it really showed through that he has actually done this. And so I really like that. That was very encouraging for me, because obviously any information that I'm giving my daughter, I want this to be stuff that is legit. So, anybody can hop on Google and round up some tips and write about it and sound like they know what they're talking about. But obviously James Dillahay really does. And like, of his other 12 books, so many of them are about selling handmade crafts and, how to sell on Etsy and marketing your handmade crafts and stuff of that nature. And so this is clearly something that he's been talking about for several years, knows a lot of information, and this book was absolutely proof of that because it's only 149 pages. Like you guys see, it's not a very thick book. I spent a couple hours a day reading through it, and I blew through it. Or not even a couple hours, I phrase that. I spent like an hour a day reading through it, and I got through it in a week. It was a very easy read, but jam-packed with information. Like, for only being 149 pages, I was blown away by how much information he covered, how many tips he went over, all the things. Like, there was no fluff, there was no just filler, there's no just talking to fill space. Like, every page in here had really good information. So 100% appreciated that, because if I give my daughter a book and it is at all boring or not to the point, she's not going to read it, right? Which kind of ruins its whole effectiveness. So really like the fact that the author knows what he's talking about and he really got to the point within the book. So first things first, do I think this delivered on the promise of, kind of teaching your teen how to start their own upcycled handmade business? And yes, oh my goodness, did this book deliver? It was so good. Like, it actually really impressed me with how much information he shared, and this was zero to running your own business, in essence. I did not expect it to have this much information, especially for a book geared towards teens, because a lot of times you get stuff that's geared toward teens or kids, and it's I mean, I almost want to say like kid level or the dumbed down version, or very high level information where you don't get a lot of detail. They'll kind of give you the basics, but it's like you'd have to go back and do more research to kind of move forward, if that makes sense, which I guess kind of makes sense. Like, for kids, maybe they don't have as high expectations, or maybe they don't want to make it seem too overwhelming or too much work, but this book had so much information, and it was just, the details, the step-by-steps, I feel like I said that 8 times already, and I'll share more about what I mean in a minute, but this really took you from, I don't even know what type of craft I want to make, like, what would I even do? I've never thought about that before, to I'm selling to, art shops and galleries, and I have my own Etsy shop, right? Like, it took you from, I'm not sure what I'm going to do, absolute no clue, to, okay, here, I'm making it, I'm doing it, I'm being successful. It covers social media marketing, it covers your own website, it covers opening an Etsy shop, it covers selling at art shows and events, it talks about wholesaling to galleries and shops. Like, it covers everything. And I really, really appreciated that, because I feel like you could take this book, like I said, use it as a resource where you come back to time and time again, and you would be good. Like, you wouldn't need to look anywhere else. You wouldn't need to get any other information. You really could take everything from this book and I think be very successful. And so that was really, I would say, what impressed me the most, is that this book was not dumbed down to be for kids. This book was like, hey, yeah, you're a teen, but I think you're capable. Here's what you got to do, and you can run with it. And everything was still very accessible. Like, it was easy to read. It wasn't too much in terms of, like, sometimes I'll read stuff where it's talking about like marketing plans or, running a business or all that stuff. And I'm like, cool, I don't know what half of that means. Like, let me pull out my dictionary. That wasn't the case. So everything was very easy to read and accessible, but it did not skimp on the details and the specifics, which I loved, because like, this isn't just, how to do it in the basic sense. This is, so here's exactly how to do it. Here's the steps to help you be successful. Here's the steps to help you grow. Here's what you need to do if you want to do this, and if you want to do this, and if you want to do this. And that, I feel like, is very hard to find in resources, and especially for something for teens. Like, I could give this to my daughter, honestly, and she could probably handle so much of it by herself. Like, I'd be there to help her and talk about stuff, but she wouldn't have to come to me and be like, well, Mom, what should I do next? Like, the book has everything you need to do. So I, first and foremost, thought that was amazing, that it covers everything that you need to know. So the next thing that I really liked about the book is that it has a lot of checklists. And that might be, like, you guys might laugh thinking that's something that I like, but I find checklists to be the most effective way to work through a lot of steps, right? Like, if you have a checklist, you can check it off, and it just breaks things down into such an organized way that you're not like, okay, cool, well, I just read, 149 pages of information, but I don't know what to do. Right? Like, I don't know what my first step is, my second step moving forward with the checklists. All right, I'll show you, like, you guys can see. Oh, it's too bright. There you go. Okay, did I do this? Did I do this? Did I do this? And so I think that makes the book super, super helpful and just super practical and useful, right? Again, it's not just information where you've learned for learning's sake, but then you don't know how to take action with it. It's here's a checklist, here's your next step, here's your next step. So I find that amazingly useful. Love the checklist. Lots and lots of checklists in there. So again, I think that makes this very practical, useful book versus just information for information's sake. The other thing that I really liked about it, and I've mentioned this before, is how he put so many details in it, and the details really speak to his experience of actually selling his stuff himself. And so it's not just, here's what you need to do, here's how to do the thing I told you to do well. So for example, he has a section and it's checklists for making products stand out, which, hello, anybody who's trying to sell something, that's a big deal. It's not just list your stuff on Etsy or go to an art show. Like, he talks about the right type of canopies to buy if you're at an art show. He talks about how to set up your canopies. He talks about how to display stuff. Like, this level of detailed information, it's almost like you sat down and you talked with somebody who sells at these events and they gave you all these tips. And again, that is not something that you typically find when people teach you how to do this type of stuff. So I loved how much of those little details. I mean, he even tells you what type of pictures to take. He talks about how to price stuff. And if you figure out your pricing model and then you want to sell it to maybe a gallery and then their pricing model, and then when you break it down, will this even make you an income, right? Will you actually make any profit off of this stuff? And so, like, those little details, I feel like, are the difference between, well, here's what you should do, X, Y, and Z, versus, so here's how you could actually be successful at this, how you could actually make money, how you could actually turn it into, a really good side hustle, side gig, small business type of thing. Like, those details throughout, and they were throughout the entire book, like, blew me away. I was highlighting, I was underlining. I'm like, oh man, like, if we do this, we really need to pay attention to this. And oh, this is such a good stuff. And like, I learned stuff for my own business. I'm like, shoot, I need to go do that. Like, that was a really good tip. And so that was exciting because I'll be perfectly honest with y'all. Again, I'm not new to starting my own business. So I thought there'll probably be some cool, really good nuggets in here for my daughter. And maybe this will be a really accessible way for her to get this information without me having to sit there and tell her what to do every step of the way. Like, that was what I was expecting at the book. So I was excited about that. But it delivered on that plus more, because again, it had so much information that I'm like, oh my God, like, she could just go do all of this by herself if she wanted to. So loved that. The personal little details were fabulous. And the fact that, again, he weaved so much of his personal information in there, or his personal experience, I should say, that there was so much of like, well, when I did it, here's how this worked, and he's not necessarily promising that your experience is going to be the same as his. But again, to be able to sit down with somebody who's been successful at this, I think I was reading through his like bio, like, I think between owning his own shop and selling his own products and stuff, like, for like 20 years he was doing this. So the type of experience and knowledge that you get from that is exactly what somebody wants when you're trying to start your own business of this nature. So I thought the fact that stuff was throughout the book was great, wonderful, and really, again, turn this from maybe something that you would find on Google where I could have figured out that information myself if I really wanted to, something that, again, I feel like is a really useful resource that somebody could come back to time and time and again and use and grow, like, through all the stages of your business. Again, this wasn't just, well, how do you get started? This was, well, how do you get started and how do you take it to the next level and how do you grow and what are all the options for you, right? So loved how much information that he put into the book. Okay, so obviously I got a lot out of the book. Very much enjoyed it. I have handed it off to my daughter and she's already started reading it, and I'm very excited to kind of talk to her about it and see what she thought and see what she's taken from the book. But, who else do I think would get a lot out of this? So, full disclosure, never considered a upcycled business before. For my daughter, I've definitely thought, like, she loves to draw, so I've thought about her selling her artwork, online, but if you are at all are interested in upcycled crafts and art, 100% buy this book. Like, buy it for your teen, buy it for yourself, buy it for your friend. The book, it might be geared towards teens, but the information, like, again, was so thorough and, so comprehensive that an adult would 100% be able to take this and run with it. If your teen or anybody else, again, for that matter, is interested in starting any type of handmade craft business, absolutely read the book. Like, you will get tons of information. If your teen is just interested in starting a business, or you are interested in them learning about entrepreneurship, I definitely think this would be a really good route to go. The author makes a very good case for selling upcycled crafts. And, I'm not somebody who has had a big focus on that before, but I do love things that are sustainable and that things are reusable. And so, I think a lot of the stuff he talked in the book was really great. And, he talked about how there's a big market for that. So definitely think that anybody who falls under those categories would enjoy the book. Also, if your teen, or again, anybody is eco-conscious and just wants to help the environment, again, he had so many ideas and suggestions and ways to look for ways or business ideas, craft ideas that you could start by, using things that would just end up in the trash that you could recycle and reuse. So, like, I'll show you guys the book one more time. Fabulous, fabulous resource. Love it, love it, love it. Again, if you're interested in entrepreneurship, your child is interested in entrepreneurship, somebody who loves to make handmade products, somebody who is very eco-conscious, somebody who just wants to start a business, make a little bit of extra money, definitely pick up the book. I highly, highly recommend it. Again, this is going to be a resource for my family. My daughter, I said I gave it to my daughter. The other two will definitely have a turn reading through it because I just feel like there's so much good information in there for starting a business in general. And then definitely if you're interested in arts and crafts, handmade products, or saving the environment. So love, love, love the book. If you want to learn more about it, I should have a link in the description where you can grab your own copy of the book because, yeah, do that. If you want to read the whole review, I've written one on my blog, so I go into a little bit more details, and there also is a free guide that James Dillahay offers that you guys can go grab, which is also a really good resource. So I hope you guys are doing well, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.